The story of Marvin and Cheryl began like many others, two young hearts full of promise and excitement for a shared future. They were college sweethearts who, despite their contrasting personalities, complemented each other in ways that seemed destined. Marvin, a driven and detail-oriented businessman, brought stability to their partnership, while Cheryl, with her free-spirited and vibrant nature, infused their life with spontaneity and joy. Their love was marked by a blend of passion and shared dreams that, for many years, created a harmonious rhythm. As the years passed, however, the strains of life began to etch their marks on their relationship. Career advancements, parenting responsibilities, and the inevitable challenges of aging shifted their focus away from each other. Moments of connection grew fewer, replaced by routines and unspoken grievances. What had once been a vibrant partnership started to feel like a transactional cohabitation, with both Marvin and Cheryl questioning what remained of the love that had once brought them together. The first mandatory marriage counseling session in Marvin and Cheryl's divorce process was scheduled for this week. Marvin attended alone, convinced it was pointless because Cheryl's rigid commitment to independence left no room for compromise. During the session, the counselor, Diane Marco, began with a direct question. "Do you love your wife?" "Absolutely," Marvin replied. "And does she love you?" Diane pressed. "She says she does," Marvin responded. "Then why are you divorcing?" "She left, took all her things, and asked for no contact for 6 months," Marvin explained. "She wants to live like she's single and date other men. That doesn't sound like someone who wants to stay married." When asked how he felt, Marvin's irritation flared. "How do you think I feel? I love her and would never hurt her. She's a good person, just lost in her own confusion. But she's heading down a dangerous path, thinking it'll all work out. If she's set on leaving, I'll move on, even if it hurts." Diane then brought up Valentine's Day. Marvin sighed. "I went all out. Roses, fancy chocolates, a $200 dinner. She gave me a card she didn't even write herself and a quick kiss before turning her back to me. That's when I realized I'd lost her." By week 7, Cheryl came to Diane's office. Asked the same questions, she echoed Marvin's account but saw things differently. "I don't want a divorce," Cheryl insisted. "I told Marvin I'd come back in 6 months. I just need freedom to do what I missed out on when I was younger. Is that so unreasonable?" Diane pushed further. "Can you let go of the idea of dating other men to save your marriage?" Cheryl was unmoved. "I'll be back as a better version of myself. Marvin will love me more after this time apart." Meanwhile, Marvin had thrown himself into other obligations, like his role on the junior college alumni board. One day, he met with Tara Wilson, the executive director, to discuss an upcoming fundraiser. Tara, a striking and vibrant woman, greeted him warmly. After their business discussion, she hesitated before saying, "I heard about your divorce. It's tough. I've been there. Are you two still in touch?" "No," Marvin replied. "She needs time to figure herself out, and I'm respecting that. No infidelity, no major issues, just diverging paths." Tara shifted gears. "This might be awkward, but I need a favor. There's a formal charity dinner Saturday, and I need a companion to keep a particularly unpleasant sponsor from bothering me. Would you go with me? If it's too much, I understand." Marvin agreed with a slight smile. "I'll be your date. Tuxedo, right?" Tara took his hand, not formally, but as a friend, and said, "Thank you so much." The canceled trip to Paris lingered in Cheryl's thoughts, a reminder of how Marvin's occasional romantic gestures often clashed with his failure to consider her desires. While he could be thoughtful at times, she wished for more attention to her own wants. Meanwhile, she had formed a casual bond with a barista at Starbucks. Their lunches hinted at deeper possibilities, but Cheryl decided it wasn't yet the time to take things further. For now, infidelity felt premature. On Saturday evening, Marvin arrived at Tara's home, his BMW gleaming and his tuxedo tailored to perfection. The door was opened by her teenage son, who politely ushered him inside. While they exchanged a few friendly remarks, Tara entered the room, transforming the atmosphere. Her cobalt blue dress and effortless poise left Marvin momentarily stunned. She looked far removed from the professional colleague he had worked with before, exuding elegance that took him by surprise. Composing himself, Marvin escorted her to the car, determined to make the evening memorable. At the charity gala, Tara commanded attention as they walked in, her beauty drawing admiring glances from every corner of the room. Marvin, fully aware of the attention she garnered, found himself quietly enjoying the role of her escort. While Tara engaged in lively conversations, Marvin kept an eye on the crowd, particularly Patrick O'Kelly, a man notorious for his unwelcome advances. When O'Kelly approached Tara, Marvin stepped in decisively, positioning himself between them and deflecting the interaction with effortless charm. Together, Marvin and Tara navigated the evening with ease, creating a natural partnership that kept O'Kelly and others at bay. The event was a success, and Marvin found himself relaxing for the first time in weeks. Over dinner, he entertained the table with his wit, rediscovering the side of himself that thrived in social settings. When the orchestra began to play, he invited Tara to dance. They moved with a shared rhythm through lively songs, and when a slower tune started, their connection deepened. Tara, sensing Marvin's lingering hurt, gently offered her support, sharing her own experiences of overcoming similar struggles. Her warmth and understanding struck a chord, offering him a glimmer of reassurance. As the evening wound down, Tara requested a late-night drive in Marvin's convertible. The cool air invigorated her, and she leaned closer to him, finding comfort in his presence. At her door, she thanked him for a wonderful evening, leaving him with an unexpected sense of happiness. Marvin drove home with the top down, the cool night air doing little to mask the warmth he felt inside. Elsewhere, Cheryl ventured into a different kind of evening. Accompanied by her friend Patty, she visited a lively club, eager to immerse herself in a world she had long ignored. Patty, familiar with the scene, quickly attracted a group of men to their table, and Cheryl found herself enjoying the attention. She danced with Tim through upbeat songs, though she hesitated during a slow dance, unsure of how far she wanted to go. Still, the evening rejuvenated her confidence. Collecting a few phone numbers and relishing the admiration of strangers, Cheryl reminded herself of her allure and the freedom to choose her path. By the end of the night, she and Patty left alone, but Cheryl felt a renewed sense of self-assurance. On Wednesday morning, Cheryl's co-workers brought her the latest edition of the junior college's internal newsletter. The main feature was an article highlighting Tara Wilson's role in the success of a children's charity event held the previous Saturday. Several photographs accompanied the article, including one showing Tara with an unidentified man. Cheryl couldn't help but wonder if the man standing beside the strikingly attractive Tara might be her estranged husband. Staring at the image, Cheryl confirmed her suspicion when her colleagues pressed her. The realization left her stunned and introspective. By Thursday, Cheryl felt compelled to act and decided to visit Betty, who ran a local travel agency. Desperate to reconnect with her husband, Marvin, she asked Betty for help. Cheryl explained her predicament. Her children had stopped speaking to her, and she believed Marvin might persuade them to reach out. Betty, though reluctant to interfere, agreed to call Marvin and facilitate a conversation under specific conditions. Marvin, after some hesitation, agreed to speak with Cheryl, albeit with a sense of obligation rather than eagerness. Later that day, Cheryl and Marvin arranged to meet for lunch at a neutral location, Alberto's restaurant. Marvin made it clear he had no intention of visiting Cheryl's home, emphasizing boundaries that reflected the strain in their relationship. When Marvin arrived at the restaurant, Cheryl greeted him warmly, though their interaction was strained and awkward. Despite her attempt to lighten the mood with casual remarks about his appearance, Marvin responded with a biting comment about the attention he had been receiving from local women, some of whom regularly brought him meals. His dry humor stung Cheryl, especially when he casually mentioned one of her acquaintances, Mary DeFalco, who had visited him early on. Cheryl, visibly irritated, shifted the conversation to her children. She expressed her sadness over their silence and asked if Marvin had discouraged them from contacting her. Marvin denied this, explaining that he had advised them to respect her as their mother. However, he admitted that the children seemed to prefer visiting him, a reality that further deepened Cheryl's sense of isolation. Despite the tension, Marvin promised to ask the children to reach out, warning Cheryl that their words might not be kind. The discussion turned to a recent newspaper article featuring Marvin and Tara Wilson. Cheryl asked about their relationship, and Marvin explained that Tara had invited him as her date to the charity event. He spoke of the evening fondly, describing it as one of the most enjoyable nights he had experienced in a long time. Cheryl's questions revealed her discomfort, but Marvin remained straightforward, making it clear he appreciated Tara's company. Toward the end of their meeting, Cheryl brought up her financial struggles. She admitted to falling short on various expenses, including bills, insurance, and moving costs, and asked Marvin for a loan. Though visibly frustrated, Marvin eventually wrote her a check, handing it over without further discussion. Cheryl expressed her embarrassment, acknowledging that her plans for independence had not materialized as she had hoped. Before parting, Cheryl inquired about a trip to France she had heard Marvin had planned. He revealed that he had organized the trip for the two of them, knowing it was a lifelong dream of hers. However, he had canceled it after she decided to leave, a revelation that brought Cheryl to the brink of tears. She expressed gratitude for his thoughtfulness, calling it the most selfless gesture she had ever experienced. Cheryl reaffirmed her love for Marvin and her hope that they might reconcile in the future. With the conversation concluded, Marvin left the restaurant, paying the bill on his way out. Cheryl remained behind, reflecting on their strained interaction and the many unresolved issues between them. Later that afternoon, Marvin reached out to Tara to ask if she was available to go out with him on Friday night. Tara responded enthusiastically, confirming she was free and curious about his plans for the evening. Marvin proposed a casual outing, attending the junior college baseball games. He suggested they enjoy the spring weather, grab a meal at the park, and watch the games together. Tara thought it was a fantastic idea and offered to secure seats in the faculty box. However, Marvin declined, explaining he wanted to keep the evening relaxed and not make it feel like work for her. They agreed to meet at 4 p.m. When Friday arrived, Marvin chose seats on the third base side of the field. The evening began with sodas and popcorn, setting a lighthearted tone. As they settled in, Marvin admitted he wasn't sure if Tara enjoyed outdoor activities or sports, but he decided to take a chance. Tara reassured him, revealing her love for sports and her past experience playing softball in high school and college. She appreciated the thoughtfulness behind the outing, mentioning it was her first time attending a game since moving to town 2 years earlier. The conversation shifted to Tara's son, who was considering trying golf despite logistical challenges due to her demanding job. Marvin suggested a summer program at his country club tailored for young golfers. He detailed the schedule, which included golf lessons, playtime on the course, and pool activities, emphasizing how enjoyable and structured it was for kids. Tara was intrigued but concerned about the cost. Marvin explained the program was free except for food costs and offered to sponsor her membership temporarily. Touched by his generosity, Tara expressed her gratitude. As the evening unfolded, the pair watched 2 entertaining baseball games, sharing hot dogs and popcorn. They laughed and talked effortlessly, reminiscing about their younger days. Marvin had even brought a blanket, not just for warmth, but as an excuse to sit closer to Tara, who seemed perfectly comfortable with the gesture. Their evening concluded with a warm hug, a brief kiss, and plans to meet again the following week. By Sunday of week 10, the country club's golf course was abuzz with activity for the season's first tournament. Played in a scramble format, teams of 4 competed by selecting the best shot from each turn. Teams were balanced by skill levels, with Marvin categorized as a B-level player. To his surprise, Greta Gustafsson was the A-level player on his team. Greta, a former LPGA Tour player, was well known not only for her skill, but also for her striking appearance. At 5'5", with long blonde hair and an athletic build, she had been a favorite of photographers during her career. Originally from Sweden, she now owned the town's largest insurance agency, a business she had built using her tournament earnings and sponsorships. Her soft, melodic voice and confident demeanor captivated everyone she met. As the team introduced themselves, Marvin found himself paired with Greta in the cart. He mentioned recognizing her from the club's annual meetings where he had given the president's report. Greta acknowledged him with a warm smile, remarking that it was nice to finally meet. During the game, Greta's talent was on full display. Her powerful swing sent the ball soaring 250 yards down the fairway, drawing admiration from the team. Marvin, impressed, complimented her in Swedish, a nod to his ancestral roots. Greta was both surprised and delighted, realizing Marvin could speak her native language, albeit modestly. She shared that he was the first person in town who knew anything about Sweden, sparking a connection between them. The rest of the game was filled with laughter, stories, and even singing Swedish nursery rhymes. Marvin, recalling songs his grandmother had taught him, added a humorous touch by admitting he didn't know their meanings. Greta's long drives and Marvin's consistent putting helped their team secure first place, winning $100 in prizes for each member. After the tournament, Greta turned to Marvin with a playful grin, telling him she'd had more fun golfing with him than winning. She suggested they play together again, and Marvin agreed, proposing a midweek game followed by dinner. Their friendly banter and shared cultural connection hinted at the start of a promising friendship, or perhaps something more. Weeks 11 and 12 marked a significant shift for Cheryl, as she reluctantly decided to attend her sorority's 25th graduation reunion. Initially resistant, Cheryl only agreed after persistent encouragement and some tough love from her friends, who recognized her struggles with Marvin and her ongoing effort to redefine herself as a modern, independent woman. They hoped this weekend would offer her both support and a renewed sense of confidence. The 3-hour drive to Dallas was a welcome reprieve for Cheryl. allowing her time to reflect on her life, her college years, and the friends she was about to reconnect with. She thought about how much their lives had evolved and anticipated the chance to catch up with the group, whose camaraderie had always been a source of comfort. The reunion was held in a luxurious corporate retreat, featuring 6 private bedrooms, each with its own bathroom, as well as a spacious central lounge, a full kitchen, and an outdoor patio complete with a hot tub overlooking a golf course. The weekend agenda was meticulously planned, with Friday set aside for travel and a casual evening together. The group had arranged dinner at a sushi restaurant, followed by a pajama party back at the retreat. Cheryl, having taken the day off, arrived by late afternoon to the sounds of laughter and squeals echoing from inside. Her arrival was met with enthusiastic cheers and the sight of a counter lined with liquor bottles, evidence of the lively atmosphere already in full swing. The Uber rides to and from the sushi dinner were chaotic and filled with laughter, setting the tone for the evening. Back at the retreat, the women gathered in their pajamas, margaritas in hand, for an open and candid discussion about their lives. Each shared updates about their careers, families, marriages, and romantic adventures, with stories ranging from uplifting to somber. Cheryl's narrative, still unfolding, was one of 3 left without resolution, prompting the group to speculate on the exciting or uncertain possibilities ahead for her. As the night progressed, many of the women, particularly those who had experienced divorce, rallied around Cheryl. They praised her for taking bold steps in her marriage, asserting her independence, and prioritizing her happiness. They admired her decision to live on her terms, temporarily separating from Marvin and enforcing a no-contact rule. However, when Cheryl revealed that Marvin had filed for divorce and seemed to be moving on with Tara Wilson, a younger, attractive woman, and a flashy new BMW, the mood shifted. Even the most assertive voices softened, cautioning her against pushing Marvin further into a decision she might regret. The women's collective advice was clear: proceed thoughtfully and protect her own interests. Saturday's plans kicked off late in the morning after a long night of bonding. The group spent the day shopping and enjoying a leisurely lunch before heading back to rest and prepare for the evening's activities. Dinner was booked at a popular Italian restaurant, followed by a night of clubbing. For fun, the group devised a Catcher of Men contest, with each woman donning her most alluring dress and contributing $20 to a pot. The woman deemed to have attracted the best man of the evening would take home the prize. Dinner was delightful, but the real energy of the night came at the club. Unable to find a single table for their large group, the women split into 2 smaller groups, which made it easier for them to mingle and dance. Cheryl danced with 5 men, each charming and entertaining, embodying the freedom and fun she had envisioned when she left Marvin's house. The 6th man, however, was different. His mere presence made Cheryl feel an inexplicable pull. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and exuded sophistication. Without hesitation, she rose to dance with him, captivated by his calm, focused demeanor. As they danced through a mix of fast and slow songs, their connection grew. Eventually, he asked her if she was tired and ready to return to her table. Cheryl, feeling emboldened, replied that she would only return if he joined her, otherwise preferring to stay in his arms. Amused and flattered, he suggested they move to his table instead, introducing her to his son and a group of college friends. He assured her they would have plenty of time to talk, as the young men were preoccupied with their own pursuits for the evening. Cheryl laughed, intrigued by his charm, and agreed, ready to see where the night would take her. Cheryl discovered that Ted was an airline broker based in Seattle, visiting Dallas to see his son Matt, who was interning there for the summer. Ted's job involved traveling the globe to buy and sell airplanes, a detail that immediately struck Cheryl as significant. Here was a man with no ties to her hometown and no connection to Marvin. For Cheryl, this was an opportunity she couldn't pass up, a chance to experience life with a man completely outside of her usual orbit. To keep it uncomplicated, she decided not to reveal her real name, ensuring there would be no trail back to her life with Marvin. Marvin often used a basketball phrase, "no harm, no foul," and Cheryl decided to adopt that logic for herself. If Marvin didn't know about her time with Ted, there could be no harm in it. Relaxed by this reasoning, Cheryl allowed herself to fully enjoy the evening. Their table became the hub of the party, with young men and women gathering to drink, laugh, and have fun. Ted, noticing the energy of their group, suggested they move somewhere more private before things got too wild. He asked Cheryl 2 questions: her name, to which she replied, CJ, and her marital status, which she described as divorced. When Cheryl inquired about where he was staying, Ted revealed he was at the Embassy Suites and joked that he'd ask his son to find another room for the night. Without hesitation, Cheryl led Ted to her friends' tables, announcing their departure and jokingly having Ted show his driver's license to her friends as a precaution. Once at his hotel, the connection between Cheryl and Ted quickly intensified. They spent the night together, and by morning, Cheryl returned to the retreat, where her friends eagerly pressed for details. While some envied her daring, others were relieved to avoid such complexities in their own lives. The weekend ended with a shared promise among the women to stay connected and plan more gatherings. But Cheryl's experiences stood out as the most talked about story. Week 13 brought a different kind of milestone. On Sunday, Marvin took Tara and her son Sean to his country club. After a leisurely breakfast, he gave Sean a tour, showing him the pro shop, driving range, and snack bar. He even provided Sean with an old set of golf clubs that his own son had used at the same age, leaving them in the shop for Sean to use whenever he came to play. Marvin went a step further, giving Sean his club number to use for ordering snacks, fostering a sense of belonging and independence for the boy. That Tuesday marked Sean's first day in the young golfer's summer program, and his excitement was palpable. What had once seemed like a dull summer now promised adventure, with golf lessons, course play, and swimming filling his days. Tara, seeing Sean's happiness, felt deeply grateful to Marvin. That evening, she prepared a heartfelt dinner for the three of them. After Sean went to bed, Tara thanked Marvin for his thoughtfulness, praising him for being such a positive influence in Sean's life. Marvin, though appreciative, confessed his lingering doubts about his own choices as a father and husband, admitting that the events of the past few months had left him feeling disoriented. Tara reassured him, drawing on her own experiences to remind him that clarity would come in time. She encouraged him to keep moving forward, assuring him that he would feel better no matter how things unfolded. Their conversation shifted to quiet companionship as they embraced and talked into the night. June 15th arrived with a heavy significance for both Marvin and Cheryl. It was their 25th wedding anniversary. The date loomed large on their calendars, marking not just their milestone, but the end of Cheryl's 6-month journey of self-discovery. It was decision day: reconcile as husband and wife, or finalize their divorce. Despite everything, neither sent a card or message to acknowledge the day, each lost in their own reflections. Cheryl, still basking in the glow of her Dallas trip, felt emboldened by her friend's support. The night with Ted had been exhilarating, a sharp contrast to the routine and constraints of her life in her hometown. Yet she also knew the importance of secrecy. Revealing anything about her escapade could jeopardize her marriage. Despite Marvin's filing for divorce, Cheryl wasn't ready to let go entirely. She wanted the freedom to live life on her terms while still keeping the stability of their marriage, a home to return to whenever she pleased. The situation was, in her mind, ideal. Marvin could remain unaware of her newfound independence, and she could enjoy her life as she saw fit. While Cheryl hated the dishonesty, she justified it by believing Marvin was overreacting. In her view, he simply needed to stop making everything so complicated. For Cheryl, this was her way of balancing the scales, even if it meant stepping into a morally gray area. On Wednesday, Marvin spent the afternoon on the golf course with Greta. With guidance from the club pro and Greta's patient tips, he managed to shave 6 strokes off his average score. Beyond the improvements to his game, Marvin enjoyed the peaceful outdoor setting and Greta's easygoing companionship. Though the competition was genuine, their conversation flowed naturally, growing more personal and relaxed as the game progressed. After their round, Marvin asked if Greta would join him on Friday for the Couples Club event, a casual evening of 9 holes followed by dinner and prizes. While the event was mostly attended by married couples, a few pairs like them also participated. Greta, smiling, agreed without hesitation. That same Friday evening, a long-standing group of women gathered at the country club for their usual drinks and dinner. Cheryl had once been a regular at these gatherings, but since Marvin had filed for divorce, her access to the club had become uncertain. Encouraged by her friend Betty, Cheryl decided to join despite her initial hesitation. She reasoned that avoiding Marvin was unnecessary. They weren't enemies, merely two people navigating a separation. Cheryl told herself that a modern, confident woman wouldn't shy away from such encounters. Their group's favorite spot was the lively patio overlooking the 9th green, a place chosen for its informal atmosphere and stunning views. The evening was perfect, with a cool breeze and vibrant conversation fueled by rounds of cosmopolitans. Cheryl felt a sense of nostalgia as she sat with her friends, recalling the many evenings she and Marvin had spent there together. Then she saw him. Marvin was walking briskly alongside a golf cart, heading toward his ball. He looked fit and confident, his athletic stride evident even from a distance. Cheryl noticed the position of his ball on the par 5 hole and realized he was close to a remarkable shot. As Marvin swung, the ball soared and rolled straight into the cup. Cheers erupted as someone shouted, "Eagle! He made an eagle!" Cheryl instinctively rose, ready to congratulate him. But she froze when a tall blonde woman, Greta, jumped out of the cart and ran to Marvin. Greta embraced him warmly and kissed him, indifferent to the onlookers. Marvin, unbothered by the attention, hugged her back, and they climbed into the cart together, laughing and chatting as they drove off. The women at Cheryl's table fell silent, their eyes on her. Cheryl grabbed her purse and hurried to her car. Once inside, she broke down, tears streaming as the weight of the moment hit her. Marvin's public connection with Greta left her grappling with the realization that she no longer held control over the timing of their potential reconciliation. The dynamic between them had shifted, and she now felt adrift. By week 14, Marvin and Cheryl were scheduled for a mediation session arranged by Diane Marcos. It was their first face-to-face meeting in 5 weeks. They arrived at Diane's office simultaneously, Cheryl complimenting Marvin's sleek BMW as they stepped out of their vehicles. Half-jokingly, she asked if he could give her a ride after the session, but Marvin declined, reminding her of their agreement to avoid unnecessary contact and citing his plans for an afternoon golf game. Inside, Diane greeted them warmly, noting their willingness to speak to each other as a promising sign. She reiterated that both had expressed love for one another and a desire to save their marriage, though Cheryl's need for independence and new experiences had become a significant obstacle. Diane framed the issue clearly. Marvin felt deeply hurt by the idea of Cheryl seeking physical connections with others, while Cheryl believed such experiences could help her feel more fulfilled as a partner. Cheryl began, her voice steady but earnest. She expressed her love and respect for Marvin, emphasizing her desire to remain married while also addressing her feelings of incompleteness. She explained her perspective on intimacy versus physical experiences, likening casual encounters to fleeting events like a handshake or even an illness, unpleasant but ultimately manageable. Cheryl hoped Marvin could understand her rationale and see her actions as a way to deepen their relationship rather than diminish it. Marvin took a long breath before responding. He acknowledged Cheryl's stated respect for him, but pointed out the contradiction in her actions. To him, her pursuit of other relationships felt demeaning and deeply offensive. The idea of her seeking fulfillment outside their marriage was a fundamental blow to his sense of trust and partnership. While Cheryl framed her desires as a step toward self-improvement and connection, Marvin struggled to reconcile those motivations with his own values and feelings of betrayal. Their conversation, raw and unfiltered, underscored the widening gulf between them, leaving the outcome of their reconciliation uncertain. Almost with defiance, Marvin stated his perspective on Cheryl's desires. He explained that her suggestion that he could just get over it revealed a misunderstanding of how deeply ingrained certain principles were for men. For centuries, he said, men had resisted the idea of sharing their partners, driven by instincts tied to masculinity and the survival of the species. The thought of another man becoming involved with his wife was fundamentally offensive to him. Marvin acknowledged his wish to remain married, but made it clear that he could not and would not tolerate her pursuing other experiences. In his view, their thoughts would inevitably drift elsewhere, creating a rift between them. Cheryl tried to reassure him softly, promising it wouldn't happen that way, but Marvin remained unmoved. Diane, their mediator, decided to conclude the session, urging both of them to consider compromises and keep an open mind. By week 15, summer had hit its stride, and Marvin's Wednesdays were reserved for golf with Greta. Their weekly outings often included just the two of them, although clients occasionally joined. After their games, Greta frequently accepted Marvin's invitations to his home for a simple dinner of steak and salad. One evening, as they relaxed on his patio after dinner, Marvin decided to share his thoughts about his marriage. He opened up about their recent reconciliation meeting, admitting that no progress had been made and that he and Cheryl were no closer to resolving their differences. Marvin also confided in Greta about his feelings toward her, acknowledging how much he enjoyed their time together. However, he emphasized his commitment to avoiding intimacy with anyone while his marriage remained unresolved. He explained that engaging in a relationship with her would feel hypocritical since he was considering divorce over Cheryl's infidelity. Marvin expressed hope that he wasn't being presumptuous in assuming she might share similar feelings. Greta's laughter eased his concerns. She assured him that she valued their time together and appreciated their friendship. For her, Marvin had become her closest companion in town, and she was happy with the current state of their relationship. She encouraged him to focus on resolving his situation with Cheryl before making any changes in his personal life. The next day, Marvin invited Tara to join him for an outdoor concert that Saturday night. She agreed, and they spent the evening driving around in his BMW convertible before heading to the concert. It was one of many summer evenings they enjoyed together, sometimes with her son Sean. Tara often remarked how much Marvin had improved their summer, particularly with Sean thriving in the junior golf program and making new friends. One evening, Tara expressed her gratitude, noting how wonderful Marvin had been for her and Sean. She admitted she wished the summer would never end. Marvin, however, was more pragmatic, acknowledging that their idyllic time might conclude abruptly. Cheryl's self-declared women's empowerment project was set to end in August, and they would soon face decisions about their future. He shared his struggles during their reconciliation sessions, noting that neither he nor Cheryl had budged on their positions. As their conversation grew more personal, Tara asked Marvin whether his no-intimacy rule applied to Greta as well. She clarified that she wasn't trying to be intrusive or jealous, but wanted to ensure Greta wasn't being treated as a backup option. She shared her own hurtful experience of being overshadowed by another woman in her previous marriage. Marvin took her hand and reassured her. He explained that his relationship with Greta was platonic and centered mostly on golf and business. Greta herself supported his no-intimacy stance, as she didn't want to pursue a relationship without clarity about its direction. Marvin emphasized Tara's importance to him and promised he would never intentionally hurt her. Weeks 16 and 17 saw the summer inching toward fall. Marvin continued his weekly golf games and dinners with Greta while spending much of his remaining time with Tara and Sean. The balance between these relationships suited everyone involved. By week 18, Greta was away in Atlanta for a golf outing and to visit friends during the July 4th weekend. Marvin took the opportunity to invite Tara and Sean to the country club fireworks show. As Sean mingled with his golf friends, Marvin and Tara relaxed in lawn chairs, enjoying drinks and the festive atmosphere. At one point, Tara noticed Marvin gazing distantly toward his house. She gently touched his arm, bringing his focus back to her. Their silent exchange, a simple nod, conveyed an understanding and connection that needed no words. Feeling restless on the night of the fireworks show, Cheryl decided to drive to the country club, parking discreetly a block away. The crowded street, lined with cars on both sides, left her little room to maneuver. Reluctant to drive down the street where she once lived, Cheryl chose to sit and observe the festivities from afar. She noticed members strolling to their cars and homes, among them Marvin and Tara, walking arm in arm with a young boy. Cheryl watched silently as they disappeared into the house that had once been hers, resisting the urge to approach or draw attention to herself. Fighting a wave of emotion, she sat quietly until they were out of sight. By week 19, Cheryl's social life had taken a lively turn. Twice a week, she went clubbing, relishing the freedom to dance, sip cosmopolitans, and tease the men who pursued her. While she never crossed any lines, she enjoyed the thrill of being chased and the attention that came with it. In the back of her mind, she remained cautious. She suspected Marvin might have hired a private investigator to monitor her activities, especially after he somehow learned about Roberto, despite their interactions being nothing more than harmless flirtation. To ensure her privacy, Cheryl adopted a series of precautions when planning a meeting with Ted. She rented a car to avoid any potential tracking devices on her own vehicle, used a different purse, and made the call to Ted from a discarded phone she found at a Walmart. When Ted confirmed he'd be in Dallas for the weekend, Cheryl suggested meeting at a bar near his hotel. He eagerly agreed. That evening, Ted greeted her with a toast, raising a glass of Macallan whiskey to her arrival. After a couple of drinks, they headed to the hotel, Ted grinning as he followed Cheryl down the hall. By week 20, Cheryl's son Robbie was nearing the end of his summer internship at a factory in Nashville. The experience had been enriching, and he looked forward to the professional connections it would bring. Earlier in the summer, Robbie had shared a dorm with another intern, Matt, during orientation. Though Matt had since been assigned to Dallas, the two had remained friendly. When Matt returned to Nashville for a meeting, he and Robbie reunited and roomed together once more. During this visit, Matt's father, Ted, arrived in town and invited both young men out for dinner. Over steaks, they laughed and chatted, the conversation eventually turning to plans for the evening. Robbie and Matt suggested heading to a club, and though Ted hesitated, he agreed to join them. An hour into the night, Matt casually brought up a wild night he'd had with his father at a Dallas club. This place doesn't hold a candle to that one, Matt said with a grin. Ted chuckled. That was a memorable night. What happened? Robbie asked, curious. Matt laughed, recounting the story. Dad met this woman around his age. She practically threw herself at him, and they ended up leaving together. She wasn't trashy, though. She was celebrating her 25th college reunion with friends and just wanted some attention. She was going through a divorce and needed to feel wanted. Robbie froze as the details began aligning too closely with his mother's trip to Dallas. Trying to stay composed, he asked, "What was her name?" Ted, puzzled, replied, "She said her name was CJY?" Robbie's mind raced. Cheryl Johnson, his mother's initials. He probed further. "Can you describe her?" Matt, sensing Robbie's unease, pulled out his phone and showed him a photo. It was of Cheryl and Ted, kissing. Robbie's heart sank as he instantly recognized his mother. Unable to stop himself, he swiped to the next image, despite Matt's attempt to intervene. The next photo left no doubt. Cheryl, in an intimate pose with Ted at the club. Ted, alarmed, quickly tried to explain. "Robbie, she told me she was divorced. I don't get involved with married women. I've been through that pain myself, and I would never do that to another man." Robbie took a deep breath and nodded. "I believe you," he said. He then turned to Matt, asking him to forward the photos. "I need to show these to my dad. He has to know the truth before they decide what to do next." As Matt complied, Robbie stood and thanked Ted for the evening. "Thanks for dinner and drinks," he said, his voice steady but cold. "Goodbye." And with that, Robbie left, his mind already racing with what he would do next. Week 21. Greta called Marvin and requested a home-cooked steak dinner after their Wednesday golf game. Marvin was happy to oblige, preparing a meal that included steak, red wine, and dessert. Later, as they moved to the couch, Marvin sensed an air of seriousness about her. It felt like she might be preparing to deliver bad news, perhaps even end their growing connection. However, Greta began with a warm tone, sharing her thoughts. "You know how much I value our time together," she said, her voice steady but sincere. "We've become close, and I want to discuss something that's been on my mind. I hope this won't hurt what we've built." Marvin braced himself, Cheryl's lingering influence flashing in his thoughts. But, as Greta continued, her words surprised him. After spending months together, she explained, she admired his integrity, intelligence, and business sense. She had observed how his practices consistently created mutually beneficial outcomes for clients in his company. Greta expressed respect for what he had built, noting that Marvin's children didn't plan to take over the business. She shared her concern about the company eventually being sold to a chain, losing its local roots. Greta proposed merging their companies. By combining resources, they could share client lists and expand their reach. Her long-term vision included taking over as president when Marvin decided to retire, eventually buying out his stake so he could step back fully or work part-time. She emphasized that he didn't need to decide immediately, but encouraged him to consider the idea. Knowing how much his personal life was weighing on him, Marvin exhaled, relieved. "I thought you were about to tell me you didn't want to see me anymore," he admitted. "Instead, you've given me an incredible opportunity." He praised her acumen and commitment, confessing that he had once hoped his son Robbie would join the business. However, Robbie's summer experience had solidified his plans to pursue engineering. Marvin embraced the idea of merging their companies, viewing it as a chance to secure his legacy while partnering with someone he deeply trusted. Week 22. Robbie, after much deliberation, called his sister Cindy to share what he had discovered about their mother's affair. He sent her a photo of Cheryl kissing Ted, but Cindy dismissed it as insufficient proof. Robbie then sent a more explicit photo, reluctantly providing evidence of their mother's betrayal. "I hate to send you this," Robbie admitted, "but between what Ted told me and this picture, there's no denying what she's done." The revelation left Cindy in shock. Overwhelmed with emotion, she began ranting, calling Cheryl vile names. Between tears, she lamented how their father had dedicated his life to someone who could repay him with such selfishness. "We have to tell Dad," Cindy said, her voice trembling. "I know," Robbie agreed. "Should I do it, or do we do it together?" "Together," she decided firmly. "This can't be a phone call. He'll need us. We're all that's left of this family, and we have to stick together." Week 23. Marvin was elated when Cindy called, asking if she and Robbie could visit the following weekend. He had missed his children, especially with Robbie away for the summer. However, his joy quickly turned to heartbreak when they revealed Cheryl's actions, showing him the photos and recounting the details. Marvin's face turned pale, his voice calm but strained. "I knew something like this might happen," he admitted. I could see how excited she was about that trip. My head told me it was inevitable, but my heart hoped otherwise. He confessed he had avoided hiring an investigator because he didn't want to face the truth, though deep down he needed to know. He sighed deeply, continuing, "She was a good mother to you both, and a good wife to me for many years. But this shows how far she's drifted. They say absence makes the heart grow fonder, but for me, the longer she's gone, the less I want her back." Having resolved to finalize the divorce, Marvin chose to focus on his children for the rest of the weekend. Though their interactions were tinged with sadness, they found comfort in being together. Marvin's composure impressed Cindy and Robbie, who noted his strength and grace in the face of such a painful revelation. While the laughter they shared was cautious, it was genuine. Marvin had spent the last 6 months preparing himself for this moment, and though it hurt, he was ready to move forward with dignity. Weeks 24 and 25, Cheryl was preparing to move back in with Marvin. She began packing her belongings, starting with outfits she didn't anticipate wearing soon, like a gauzy sundress. Convinced that Marvin had no solid grounds to divorce her for infidelity, she was ready to leave behind her 6-month experiment with independence. Cheryl longed for the comfort of Marvin's spacious, elegant home, a stark contrast to her cramped apartment. She missed the status and privileges that came with being Mrs. Marvin Johnson, such as attending glamorous formal dinners and sitting at the head table. Memories of the lively 4th of July parties at the country club brought a pang of nostalgia. Over time, she noticed her social circle shrinking, with fewer invitations for coffee or lunch at the club. While she had initially found the club scene thrilling, it quickly lost its appeal. She enjoyed dancing and the occasional flirtation, but the men she met seemed intent on immediate gratification, whether in the bathroom, parking lot, or elsewhere. Watching other divorced women navigate the same cycle, Cheryl began to see a version of herself she didn't want to become. Ted had been the exception, the kind of lover she'd envisioned. She imagined occasional weekend escapades with him, keeping Marvin none the wiser. However, her plans began to unravel. None of her children had called in weeks, and attempts to reach them resulted in abrupt hang-ups. Ted had also gone silent, his calls and texts unanswered. Cheryl's phone only buzzed with messages from men at nightclubs who sought little more than fleeting encounters. Frustrated, she wondered if she needed a new phone entirely. Week 26. At Marvin's request, his attorney reached out to Cheryl's lawyer, scheduling a final meeting to determine the fate of their marriage. Marvin demanded two things: that Cheryl provide a current STD test, and that both sign the divorce papers at the start of the session. If they decided to reconcile, the symbolic act of tearing up the decree would mark their reunion, and a bottle of champagne awaited to celebrate. However, the requirement of the STD test left Cheryl feeling humiliated. Reluctantly, she visited a clinic for the test, dreading the familiar staff who might judge her. She assured herself she was clean, though the process left her uneasy. For the meeting, Cheryl chose an elegant new dress, carefully applying makeup to present her best self. She was eager to reclaim her role as Marvin's wife, a realization that underscored how much she missed him. She arrived first, followed by her lawyer, with Marvin arriving last. He apologized for his tardiness, placing a striking red envelope on the desk. Cheryl's heart raced, imagining a romantic gesture, perhaps the revival of their canceled trip to Paris. The exchange of STD reports confirmed no issues, much to Cheryl's relief. Both signed the divorce decree, marking a pivotal moment. Marvin then asked Cheryl if she had anything to say. Cheryl spoke earnestly, expressing how difficult the past 6 months had been without Marvin. She framed her time apart as an opportunity for personal growth, promising that the experience had deepened her commitment to their marriage. Cheryl vowed to spend the rest of her life proving her loyalty and love, grateful for the chance Marvin had given her to rediscover herself. Marvin listened intently before responding. "Faith is the foundation of trust in any marriage," he began. "Without trust, love cannot exist. When I filed for divorce, it was because I valued fidelity. Over the past 6 months, I've spent time with several women, but have refrained from pursuing anything more. Cheryl, can you say the same? Have you remained faithful to me?" Cheryl froze, her confidence wavering under his formal tone. "Yes, I've been faithful," she replied. Marvin's expression darkened. He reached for the red envelope, pulling out a photograph of Cheryl kissing Ted. "Is this what you call faithfulness?" he asked, his voice sharp. Caught off guard, Cheryl stammered, attempting to dismiss the photo. "It was just a kiss," she said. "It didn't mean anything." Marvin pulled out another, far more explicit photo, placing it on the table. "And this?" he asked coldly. Cheryl's lawyer advised her to remain silent, but she couldn't stop herself. "Where did you get that? Were you spying on me?" she blurted. "That dress, my dress, was pulled up accidentally when I fell on him. Marvin's voice grew sterner. This wasn't surveillance. This came from a friend of our son, who overheard Matt and his father joking about the woman who threw herself at Ted in Dallas. They showed him the photo to prove it was you. Cheryl's face drained of color as tears welled in her eyes. Marvin leaned forward, his tone colder still. Imagine what it felt like for our son to sit across from the man who humiliated his father and reduced his mother to this. And you wonder why they don't answer your calls. Marvin turned to his attorney and handed him the signed decree. File it, he instructed. He turned back to Cheryl, his voice firm yet calm. You claim closeness with Ted meant nothing. That's even crueler. If it means nothing to you, yet you know how much it means to me, then how could you? How could you disrespect me so deeply? That, Cheryl, is the worst betrayal of all. Cheryl crumpled under the weight of Marvin's words, tears streaming as she mumbled incoherent pleas. She couldn't muster the strength to leave the room. Even when her attorney gently tugged her arm to guide her out, Cheryl repeated the same desperate refrain. No, 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 I want to be your wife again. Please forgive me. I promise to be faithful. Don't do this to me. I can't be divorced like those women in the clubs. Please, Marvin, don't push me away. Her cries echoed through the office as Marvin walked out, her sobs following him even as he reached his car. Unable to face the rest of the day, Marvin drove home and poured himself a stiff whiskey. Lighting a cigar, he tuned into the Frank Sinatra channel on Sirius Radio and stepped out onto his patio. The quiet, serene view provided a semblance of the peace he desperately needed. His phone buzzed relentlessly. Cheryl calling every few minutes, interspersed with messages from Tara, Greta, Robbie, and Cindy. He ignored them all, deleting Cheryl's calls without listening. All in good time, he thought. Deep down, Marvin had always suspected this was how things would end. It was why he had insisted Cheryl move out completely 6 months earlier. He needed that time to adjust to life without her. The woman he had loved was gone long before her affair. Over the last year, he had watched her resentment toward their marriage grow. Whether or not she had cheated seemed irrelevant now. Cheryl had already emotionally left, and the bonds they once shared had unraveled. Tara and Greta, on the other hand, had offered him more genuine care and support in the past few months than Cheryl had in years. The 25-year guarantee on their marriage, as he thought of it, had long expired. Whether it was the whiskey, exhaustion, or the sheer relief of closure, Marvin fell into a deep sleep on the patio. He woke hours later to Tara's gentle touch on his shoulder. Concern etched across her face, she asked softly, "Are you okay?" Marvin offered a weak smile. "Yeah, why wouldn't I be?" he replied. Tara chuckled, her tone light but supportive. "Well, you seem to have survived your divorce with your humor intact." He nodded, exhaling deeply. "It ended exactly how I thought it would. I've been preparing for this day ever since she left. The details didn't matter. I knew it would come to this. At least I've had time to plan for the future instead of drifting aimlessly." Tara slid onto the seat next to him, wrapping an arm around his shoulders. "Does that future include me?" she asked. "Absolutely," he said without hesitation. Tara leaned in and kissed him gently. "Take your time," she whispered. "You're closing the chapter on a 25-year relationship, and that doesn't just vanish. I'll be here for you when you're ready." With another kiss, she stood and left. Cheryl, confident Marvin would welcome her back, had already arranged to vacate her apartment at the end of her lease. The sudden reality of needing a new place to live hit hard. Worse, her landlord raised the rent by 40%, forcing her to look for cheaper accommodations. The divorce settlement left her in a difficult position. She had refrained from pushing for more financial support, knowing Marvin would have fought it. The house and business had always been his, inherited before their marriage, and she had little legal claim. She found a modest apartment in a less desirable neighborhood within her budget, but moving costs and deposits were daunting. Cheryl dismissed the idea of buying a small house. It would require upkeep she wasn't willing to handle. Even the thought of taking an evening job filled her with dread, not because of the work itself, but the humiliation of possibly serving her former country club acquaintances. Though her children now answered her calls, their relationship had been strained. They promised to visit the next time they were in town, but Cheryl knew it would take time to rebuild the bonds. As autumn arrived, the shorter days and colder nights mirrored her sense of isolation. This is going to be a long, cold winter, she thought grimly. The following Saturday, Marvin slept in, skipping his usual golf game. Around mid-morning, Greta appeared in his doorway. "I heard it was rough, but it's over," she said, her tone teasing. "Who told you that?" Marvin asked, raising an eyebrow. With a sly smile, Greta replied, "We share a lawyer, remember? I threatened to break all his golf clubs if he didn't keep me updated." Marvin laughed and hugged her. Yes, it's finally over, he confirmed. Greta took a deep breath and motioned for him to sit beside her. Now that you're making plans for your future, I need to tell you something, she began. I wanted to bring it up before, but you had enough on your plate. Besides, I was having so much fun with you that I didn't want to spoil the moment. Marvin hesitated, unsure of what she was about to say. The women in town find you very attractive, Greta began. Now that your divorce is finalized, you're going to draw even more attention. I'm sure you'll remarry someday. But if you ever proposed to me, I'd have to decline. Because I'm already married. Marvin blinked in shock. What? Married? To who? My wife lives in Atlanta, Greta explained calmly. We've been married for 5 years. One of the reasons I travel there so often is to visit her. I'm a lesbian, Marvin. I have been for 10 years. That doesn't change how much I love you as a friend and want you in my life. Still stunned, Marvin listened as Greta continued. I'm perfectly happy with the relationship we've had this summer. Tara doesn't need to worry about me competing for your affection. If she's important to you, she's important to me. We're business partners, after all. I even appreciated your no intimacy rule this summer. It made things easier for me and respected my wife's feelings. Greta smiled warmly. So let's continue being the great team we've been. You're one of the best things to happen to me, and I'm glad to call you my friend.